Hello, and welcome to Churchy Chats with the Church Girl. My name is Alicia Wiley. If this is your first time here, I am the owner and creator of A Church Girl, which is a lifestyle brand and a clothing line that seeks to inspire and uplift everyone we have the privilege of connecting with. Tonight's show is super special, and I know I say that it's always going to be a good show or this or that, but tonight we have our very first international guest. So I am super excited about that because Churchy Chats is going across the pond. Yay. Before we get our guest in, I need you to share this, tag your family and friends. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. We are now airing on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, so feel free to view on your favorite viewing streaming platform. Let's not wait any longer. I want to get our guest in the room and welcome her to Churchy Chats. Hello, Mo. Welcome to Churchy Chat.
Good evening. Hi, everyone.
I am so excited to have you as our first international guest. And listen, I'm ready to jump into the conversation, but before we do that, introduce yourself to the Churchy Chats audience.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Alicia. And thank you so much to our amazing audience as well on tonight's stream. My name is MoChunks. I'm a media modulette. I am very passionate about media and purposeful in teaching in whatever I do, whether it is that I am writing, speaking, producing, directing, presenting, telling a story. I like to teach people new things, and I also like to learn from others as well. If I was to break down my roles in media, I am an embodiment of many different talents. So I produce, I direct, I write, I speak, and I present.
Wonderful. I am so excited that you are here. So let's jump into talking about this empire that you have built. But I first want to talk about you call yourself a mogulette.
Yeah.
You are a producer, speaker, writer, among the other things that you told us. Can
Yeah.
you tell us how you got started on this path?
We'll be here all night. The backstory to how I got into media. Okay, I'll tell this little story.
Okay.
It was a while ago. I was younger and I was in the garden and I had, those brick Nokia phones, and I was
Mm-hmm.
vlogging. You know how you might pretend to vlog and stuff. I was vlogging and I was like showing my family members. I was like, oh, this is my uncle, this is my cousin,
Uh-huh.
this is me, and then sort of doing. I was presenting basically, and my uncle must have seen me from the window, and then he came out and then he was like, Mo, you'd actually be really good at this presenting thing. I didn't really understand there was a thing called a presenting thing. And
Okay.
he told me about some presenters in Nigeria, the likes of Mo Abudu, who did the show called Moments with Mo. This was in Nigeria. So I'm originally Nigerian.
Okay.
So he mentioned them to me. He mentioned another amazing lady called Tools, who was taking over the entertainment scene at the time. And I went away with those names and I researched them and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, when your eyes kind of light up, like I would love
Yes.
to do this. And I think that was a little seed that was planted at that time. And then I would say that, because, growing up in an African household, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
Nigerian, I stayed in Nigeria till I was 10 years old and I moved over here literally the day after my 10th birthday.
Okay,
And
so you're living where now?
I'm in London now.
Okay.
London now. So we moved to the UK, little town
Mm-hmm.
called West in Crawley in West Sussex, and African household. Although my uncle planted that seed, I was geared
Mm-hmm.
towards more of the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Because my parents spotted that, okay, she's quite intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of groom her towards like the medical side of things and da, da, da,
Sure.
da. So that almost became my new dream, not because it was my
Mm-hmm.
thing, but because somebody had kind of put it in my head. And they say you can
Mm-hmm.
tell someone a lie so many times it starts to become the truth, right? So that
True.
that became the truth for me. So
That's
that became,
good.
yeah, it became the truth for me, and it became something that I pursued for quote unquote on myself, but really it was more for my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting because you can be on the wrong path, but God can still like steer you in the right direction
Yes.
if you allow Him. Because
Right.
I went to the University of Leicester. So I got my top choice uni, did apply for medicine, got rejected for medicine, even though all my credentials were outstanding, A-star student, all the credentials and everything. But I still didn't, think the alarm bells still weren't ringing that this might not be your path. So I
Sure.
went to study medical physiology with the plans of basically going on to do graduate medicine later on. And Leicester, if you ask any Londoner, especially in the time when I was in uni, Leicester was a creative hub. And a lot of different creatives were in the same city, and I began to encounter them on my path to medicine. So I was on my way to medicine, started meeting all these amazing creatives, and that light was, it came back. It's like, the spark was like, I really love this. I really want to do this. And that was where I started to learn about cameras and, producing shows. And I'd done like little clips here and there with like a friend before. But this was really where it stamps that you can actually do this talk show thing. You can actually produce amazing shows. And that was where it started. And I hope that wasn't too long, but just to
No,
get
no.
you know?
That was really good to hear
Yeah.
because I know for sure, our parents and sometimes us, because of what we are kind of fed from society or family, we have an idea of what we want to do. And it can make us feel like, not saying that this was your situation, but it can make us feel like the thing that is truly in us to do is lesser
Yeah.
than what society expects or what your family expects. But can you talk a little bit about how was it when you got ready to tell your parents, okay, medicine is not going to do it, I want to do this instead? What were their thoughts?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think it's still interesting. My parents still have moments where they're like, go back and study medicine, go back and study medicine. I think where I kind of had my leverage over them was that I said, look, I've done the medical physiology, I've gotten the best possible grade. So I graduated in first class. I did that for you. That part of my life was for you. Now
Yeah.
let me do my thing. And I think that was how I convinced my parents. Of course, they were very like disappointed. They wanted the first doctor in the house. But I'm like, that's your dream, not mine. Don't put that on
Sure.
me. If you want the first doctor in the family, you go become the first doctor in the family. I'm going to be a Miguel. So I think that was how, I think they understood that I've done this part for them. I've taken university path for them, so they should allow me to kind of do what I want to do now. And they still till today, like, as a child, you're forever a child of your parents. If I'm ever having
Yes.
money issues, I tell my parents, and they're like, sometimes I regret it because they're like, you see, you should go and study your medicine and da. But it's like, they also see that when it's up. Like this
Yes.
creative journey is a very interesting one where you have moments where you're doing so well and you're like, woo, and then
Yes.
there's moments where you're like, ooh, God, are
This
you
is
sure?
rough.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
and you tell your parents, your earthly parents that, and they're like, if you go down the more stable, you wouldn't have these issues. But then what's stable when like your calling's on the line? You're
Absolutely.
going to eventually get there. It's just some sacrifices on the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you said mogulette.
Yeah.
It's feminine.
Yeah.
Talk to us about why it's important for it to be in the feminine for you. I don't know if that is something that is popular where you are. Where
Yeah.
we are, in the US, we may hear it here and there, but
Yes.
it's nothing that is constant or consistent. It's, oh, she's a mogul. It's not really in the feminine, but
Right. Right.
you can speak a little bit about that, but also speak to why it's important to you that it is,
Okay.
presented in the feminine.
I mean, I saw this question and I laughed actually because I didn't actually think too much of it. I just think Wikilet sounds cute. I know the male version is Mogul, and I just thought that sounded a
Yes.
bit boring. Maybe it is subconsciously me saying to myself that's a bit more on the masculine side. How do I feminize this? And I think I kind of know what you mean in terms of in America, there's this whole thing about femininity coaches, right?
Yes.
And teaching especially black women to own their, obviously there's coaches for all kinds of women, but I've in particular seen the ones on YouTube that speak to both women about their femininity. But
Mm-hmm.
genuinely, I just thought it sounded cute. But I am, that aside though, I am big on my embracing my femininity for reasons beyond, you know, being a working lady. It's just
Mm-hmm.
been, you know, growing up, I had to grow up really fast. I felt like I wasn't really, you know, brought up to be feminine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's deep because it's like, can I go there? Because it's like, um yeah, I think growing up Christian and African, especially
Mm-hmm.
Nigerian Yoruba, the first African daughter, in my household, you know, there was this whole thing about, how do Americans say it, not being too fast.
Yes.
And because of that,
Mm-hmm.
the way I was brought up was to almost suppress anything that made me a woman,
Wow.
if that makes
Wow.
sense. Because
Yes.
I think the minute you start becoming a woman, that means you must be, you know, sexually active. So
Mm-hmm.
even in
Mm-hmm.
like church environments, getting like slut shamed and where
Yes.
you going and why are you wearing that perfume, and you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like you don't get taught, so you're not too fast. So it
Yes.
was kind of embracing my femininity for me was part of healing from the slut shaming and from the suppression of that, so I don't become too fast. So it was kind of like re-owning my femininity. But yeah,
That's really good.
yeah,
Can
yeah.
you talk to us a little bit about, we know our cultures are different. At
Mhm,
what point did you start to embrace, or at what point did you even feel comfortable?
mhm.
I don't know if it was an age or something, that you felt inside, but at what point did you feel like, okay, it's okay for me to embrace the fact that I'm a woman
Mm, I would definitely say quite recent, actually, maybe like 3 to 5 years ago. I
okay.
decided I wanted to start, you know, healing from the traumas that I'd been through when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that, you know, unpacking mommy issues, daddy issues. Part of that
Mm-hmm.
was embracing and owning my femininity. I would say in the last 2 years is where I really began to re-own myself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I've been on several journeys with my body and embracing and loving my body. My weight's always been up and down since when I was a child. I would say it's in the last 2 years, however, that I've actually begun to embrace a full-on, sustainable, healthy lifestyle.
Wow.
And I think it's since then as well, having a new body and getting to know a
Mm-hmm.
new body and getting to know how to dress a new body, I would say, in conjunction with learning and embracing the femininity. And when I moved out as well, let me not forget that when I
Mm-hmm.
moved out of my parents' house, that really gave me the chance to be myself.
Sure.
I think when you are at home, even when you don't have parents that may enforce things on you. It's just you're in that bubble. But when you're
Mm-hmm.
in your own space, you have the chance to actually explore, who am I? What do I like? Without the
Sure.
fear of judgment, or what are they going to think of me, or do
Mm-hmm.
they think I'm no longer Christian? Do they think I'm no longer, you know, unapologetically African? Do
Mm-hmm.
they like? Am I change? You give yourself that freedom to change. I would say that when I moved out as well, that really helped, and that was about 2 years ago. It's around that two year mark. Yeah.
And that's something that I don't think people talk about openly quite as much. When people see that you are somebody that's in front of the camera, that seems to be somebody who put themselves out there, which is technically our jobs, but some people feel like insecurities doesn't go with that, or she's not insecure, or she doesn't have any issues with how she looks or with anything like that because of the job description basically. But it's so real, and
Mhm.
it may be realer for those of us who are constantly in front of a camera, constantly dealing with these things. And I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but you talked about how things that you may do or things that you may think in your culture could have been considered that you were no longer Christian or you weren't true to your African roots or heritage. Can you talk about how you're able to navigate through that? Is it tough culturally for you to be creative and free and still be, a Christian and
Yeah.
true to, true to yourself? And when I say that, I know that you know, okay, of course I'm a Christian and of course I'm true to my roots, but
Yeah.
from what it looks like from the outside, how do you deal with that?
Um, I would definitely say that I have gotten to a stage now where outside approval doesn't matter as much. That's not to say that it doesn't, still affect me till today, but I would definitely say that part of me being myself is just me, the process to get in there has been actually it doesn't matter what they think of you or whether you're a person of faith. And that actually came about because I finally learned the gospel for what it was. And for a long time, I didn't know. I can't believe that I've been in church for 21 years of my life at the time. Or how many years was it? 21, 24? 24 years of my life in church. And I didn't really understand the gospel. It was 2020 that I had a revelation of what the gospel truly was, and that was as a result of finally asking questions about why do we do some of the things we do in church. I was in a church leadership, as a part of a church, and in the leadership team, as a pastor, a commissioned pastor in the church, and there were so many things that were happening behind the scenes that I questioned, and it just wasn't matching up with my personal morals and my integrity. So I did some research, and I was like, wait, hold on. And I learned about justification and how there's a lot of controversy around it, but the statement around justification is that there's nothing you can do to lose your salvation. And that blew my mind. I was like, wait, all these years in the church that I've been told that if I slip up, that's it. I need to dedicate my life to Christ. And if the trumpet sounds, it's a very Nigerian thing. If the trumpet sounds, that's the end of it. That the last thing you do is what determines whether you get to heaven. And imagine that burden, carrying that burden for 24 years, knowing that I love God, knowing that I love Jesus, but also knowing I'm not perfect.
Right.
I know that I do slip up and I do the wrong things. There's a scripture where Paul was saying that, he wants to do the right things, but he keeps finding himself doing
Evil
the
is
wrong thing.
present.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's the human experience. So imagine hearing that you're not good enough. So I'm like, rapture can happen anytime now, and it's a matter of what I was doing, and then learning actually it's justification. It's based on what Christ did on the cross that gets you to heaven.
Yes.
That broke a lot of chains off of me. People pleasing, trying to prove my salvation to others. It was a new understanding that actually my salvation is sure. It doesn't mean that we should sin and expect, the scripture about shall we continue to sin and expect grace to abound? No. Because that suggests to me that actually, no, you're not a Christian, you're not a believer, you're not a person of faith. If you hear justification and you now think, let me abuse this, that's not how we behave. Do we make slip ups? Yes. Are we forgiven? Are we justified? Absolutely. So that allowed me to be myself, understanding the gospel.
Yes.
The gospel is freeing because it's like now I don't have to perform. Now I don't have to look like a typical church girl or act like a typical church girl. For years, I struggled with this calling into media because I was like, that's not a very Christian thing to do. I thought it had to be limited to the pulpit, but now I get it that actually no, I'm sent out into the world and that's okay, and I am still justified. So I would say that the gospel definitely freed me and allowed me to be myself. I hope I answered your question. I feel like I kind of went
You
off.
did completely. And I think that's so wonderful because I grew up in the church. My dad is a pastor, and now I work with him in the church. And that's actually how a church girl came about because I loved fashion, right? I loved fashion. But, my sister and I, we were teenagers, and, we kind of dressed how we wanted. I wouldn't say it was, provocative. It was just like jeans and stuff like that, but people always had something to say about what we had on. So, at that age as a teenager, I was like, I don't care what y'all think. If you lucky I'm here. And plus my mom is the type that's not gonna let us wear
Yeah.
crazy stuff. So I was like, if
Yeah.
I got out of the house with it, I
Yeah.
think I'm good. So,
Hmm.
dealt with that for a while. And then I started to wear like a black maxi and like, these little black cardigans. I wore them for like probably a couple of months. And
Hmm.
then I started to feel a little depressed. And I was like, I don't know why I'm feeling like this. And then it finally dawned on me that I wasn't being creative in one of the areas that God had given me as a passion, right?
Right.
I felt like fashion is not a calling.
Hmm.
It's not something that people are called to do. And the Lord was like, he kind of
Mm.
slapped me upside the head, like, but it definitely can be just because it's not your traditional, preacher,
Mm.
usher, deacon, whatever. I'm needed, as you said, outside of the walls of the church. So when I finally got to accept that, I said, okay, well, I'm going to come out with a clothing line, with fashionable, appropriate clothing. A church girl came to mind, and I was like, I can't use that. It's too specific.
Hmm.
People are just not going to gravitate towards it, but it was literally the only thing that God had given me. So finally, I was like, I'm going forth with it. It's about women who are fashionable, who love God, who also like to have fun, can be social, can do things,
Yeah.
but we do it in a way that we carry ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, as a Christian woman, it's okay to be a Christian woman and.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that was my little insert today. I wanted to
Yeah.
tell that story because it really resonated with me. Your calling is not necessarily inside the doors of the church. And I preached a sermon called Do It for the Vine shortly after I started a church girl. And it was just encouraging people, if your gift is outside of the church, embrace that and just glorify God through that.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
that was what your story brought to me, my little blurb on that. But that was actually really a blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So it can be tough for
Hmm.
women, especially black women, to make their mark professionally. Um, I think it's a little easier for even certain professions, right? If it's something that is deemed, something that a woman can do well, then it's cool. But it's
Yeah.
still hard for women. I don't think I realized until I got older, how many professions are so male dominant.
Hmm.
And of course I knew that, but I didn't understand the depth
Hmm.
of it. So can you talk to us about, just kind of forging forward through all of the I'm woman, I'm black,
Hmm.
I'm dealing with these different things. What
Yeah.
are some of the difficulties that you experienced and how did you overcome them?
Hmm. I think one that comes to mind straight away is, as you said, a lot of industries are male dominated, and no man is an island. You can't do things in isolation if you want to do it well. I mean, up until a certain point, and I've gotten to a stage in my career now where I'm like, okay, man, it's time to build a team. And there's people that will volunteer their help, and 9 times out of ten, it's a guy, and you question motives. Uh,
Yes, absolutely.
what do you want, kind of thing, because you hear this whole thing about sometimes guys don't really do favors for you unless there's something in return. So
Absolutely.
I think that's one of my biggest challenges. Media is a very, very male dominated industry because it is, I guess it's one of those industries that require strength.
Yes.
Like you said, because of socialization, there's certain things that women have been kind of raised to kind of want to go into. And men have been kind of raised, to use their strength in different careers. And that's not to say that women don't flourish in media. Like, look at us, we're doing amazing.
Sure.
Look at me, I've been in, I don't know about you, but I've been behind the camera as well as, in front. So we
Yes.
do it and we do it well. But I think socialization has a lot to do with, why we've been conditioned for a lot of these industries to be that way. So very male dominated industry, and I'm saying to myself, I want to build a team. And I think one of my difficulties is being wary of who actually wants to be on the team for real, or who wants a different kind of favor in return.
Yes.
So it's been kind of trying to decipher decipher that I find quite difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what other things would I say I found difficult? Um, I found being consistent when things aren't going so well difficult. I
Yes.
think it's easy to show up when you're having a great week or month. Like we said at the start of the
Mm-hmm.
show, it's very easy to show up when things are great. When things are not so great, it's like, oh, again. Yeah, I would say that that's something that I found quite difficult. Do I allow these things to kind of get in my way though? No, I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm the kind of person that, yes, I might take pauses, but I never stop. I think I'm so
Yes.
determined, and because I see the end goal so clearly, I'm like, this is going
Mm-hmm.
to happen for me no matter
Yes.
what. This whatever stumbling block might be happening now is exactly just that, a stumbling block. And the minute we get over it, boom, we're in the race again. But yeah, I would say that, as a black woman,
Mm-hmm.
these two things, being black and then being a woman, yes, they can in some instances, hold us back just because
Mm-hmm.
of, those at the top who may not be willing to give us a chance. But honestly, keep pushing, and I believe so strongly in partnering with the Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
praying for the right people to come into your life, praying for the spirit of discernment to discern motives, like with the whole building a team thing and not knowing exactly what people want and why they want to be around you. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
believe in partnering with the Holy Spirit to navigate through these things, and also just showing up. There's such a huge power in keeping on showing up. Like, I believe it's Oprah that says luck is, opportunity, preparation meeting a moment of opportunity.
Yes.
And you never know when that moment of opportunity is going to come, so you have to stay ready and you have to keep showing up. So that's been my biggest, how to overcome that.
Show up when things aren't going, our way, as we call
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be tough, whether it's, the type of job we do, whether it's a ministry you have, whether it's your 9 to 5, in life, it's hard to show up when
Mm-hmm.
things aren't going our way. But you said you can see the big picture so clearly. You can see the end goal so quickly that um, this will pay off. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good reminder, to keep your eyes on the prize,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about sometimes taking pauses.
Yep.
So when I know that you had MoChunks, so first I want you to tell us about, you know, you and all that you kind of do and what it consists of, but it was formerly MoChunks TV,
Yeah.
and you decided to slow things back a bit. Can
Yeah.
you talk to us about, the quick development and
Okay.
why you decided to pull back a little bit?
Mm. Like I said, I'm someone that's a dreamer, and I definitely saw the end goal right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the mistake I made was I was trying to paint that picture in full straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought, straight in, that's what I learned from my education. Straight in, be determined, be a go-getter, and it will just begin to flow. But actually now on the other side, I believe about 5 years in, 5 to 8 years in, if I'm counting the years I was on serious, I would say 8 years. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
counting the years that I was actually serious about this thing, I would say 5 years. About 5 years
Okay.
in, I'm like, I should going to need? What people are you going to need with you? Like I said at the start of the show, no man is an island. You're going to need people. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something I quickly came to realize, after pursuing this thing for what seems like a while, it's really not a while in the grand scheme of
Mm-hmm.
things. When you hear success stories, you hear people sometimes 15 years, 30 years. So 5 years is really nothing. But
Right.
to somebody who's been doing it all by themselves, and when I say all, like
Mm-hmm.
all, I mean being behind and in front of the camera, I've had, an amazing guy called Toby who, just came along for one of the series that we did on the show, Why We Love Love. And, he came along because I wanted actually my friends to help me. One of my friends, Emmanuel, couldn't be there. So he said, actually, I know this guy called Toby who's a photographer, but if you teach him, he might be able to do video. So he came on board. He came on board, and he's just been a part of what was MoChunks TV before, producing. I think one of the most popular shows at the time was What's Trending. He was there as a camera operator, and he was riding the wave with me. But again, it was like even the two of us wasn't enough. We still needed more. And then the pandemic, I believe, was what really helped to strip things back for me. So MoChunks TV as a platform was literally an online TV network where the vision for it is to have various TV shows running simultaneously. So you see how you might open up the BBC or I'm not really sure what channels you guys have. Do you guys still have BET?
Yes.
So you open up BET and there's loads of programs running on the same day, right? It's not just for example, quote unquote, the MoChunks show that's going to be live. There's going to be different shows, cooking shows, reality shows, want to take some park entertainment, So that's the vision I had for it. And in uni, I remember seeing that so crystal clear. Like I was in the shower one time and I heard chunks of life, fashion, entertainment, relationships, MoChunks TV. So I heard that and I came out of the shower, started drawing all these different shows. That was what my production mind. I saw What's the Motive, that's an event series, What's Trending, Topics Recap. I saw Why Do We Love Love, relationship talk show. And look at me, so excited. I thought we could produce this all at once, all by myself. And we did do really well, but I got burnt out, especially and it became very crystal clear in the pandemic that I'd been overworking myself and trying to do too much by myself and not being with co-hosts that were on What's Trending, or not seeing Toby as much who would help me with the camera, having to be by myself again. It gave me a new perspective about this thing that I was doing, and it made me realize that actually, Mo, why don't you focus on building your personal brand? And MoChunks TV will eventually come when you build a team for one thing. Because I think what I was doing is that I had, a multi-focused vision. And what MoChunks allows me to do is actually to streamline that back and do just the one thing really well. So currently on my channel, rather than having multiple shows running, I have the MoChunks show running. And it's like, if you can do the MoChunks show really well, then you open the door to produce other things. And it's so hard because I like doing multiple things.
Yes.
I like focusing on, and you convince yourself, I believe I can do multiple things, but actually I don't think that showed me otherwise. So for my own sanity, for my own well-being, I have to do the one thing well. And the minute I can build a team for the MoChunks show and MoChunks as a personal brand, and that's running well and running without me, then I know I can move on to start building the other things, and then it will be seamless as well. But what was happening was I was trying and spreading myself too thin, so there was no momentum. But if I can get this one thing going and flying high, I believe we'll get to MoChunks TV. So right now it's MoChunks, but MoChunks TV is gonna come back.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
And by good, I think I just mean a lot of times people are afraid to backtrack. And it's not necessarily a backtrack. It's just, pulling yourself away from the many things so that you can to do one thing, so that eventually you can do the many things again. Like you said, we see the big picture and we try to paint it all at one time. And I think it's healthy. When I saw that on your page, I was like, I'm so glad she shared that, because some people just feel like if I stop for now, or, they feel like it's failure, but it's really not. It's surveying the situation and making the best choice so that your future can be the big picture. So
Mm.
thank you for sharing that. Even on your social media, it was very inspiring and good to see and encouraging to people. You know, it's okay to slow it down a bit sometimes, but that doesn't mean you're giving up on your
No, it
dreams.
doesn't. No, no.
So we're going to, just before we wrap this up,
Uh-huh.
you are recently married. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
So, you posted on your social media
you.
about it. So, here's what we want to chat about for a minute, little girl talk.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, First, I want you to talk about how it can be difficult for
Hmm.
women, who are ambitious,
Okay.
who, have a big picture that they are moving, to forward quickly, um, to sometimes have relationships.
Mm.
And I also want you to talk a little bit about how you and your husband ended up together. I know on your social media you talked about you all had been friends and that type of stuff,
Yeah.
but how it all came together and how
Yeah.
love ended up being somewhere you really didn't expect it to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so let me go for the first one. I would say that although my mom, my parents, they,
Mm-hmm.
especially my mom, she wanted me to be a doctor. However, she knew that there was something great inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted that to happen in medicine, but she just knew there was something great, something special about
Sure.
this girl. And from when she was younger, from when I was younger, sorry, she always used to say to me, that I pray for you that you marry a good man,
Mm-hmm.
a man that will not be intimidated by your success. It's just a woman
Mm-hmm.
speaking prophetically over
Sure.
this young girl, that, I pray that, he's going to support you and he's going to let you just be the shining light that you are. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
that also comes from, unfortunately, she didn't have, the best marriage with my father,
Mm-hmm.
where there were many things that she wanted to pursue, but because of that African mentality,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, let me not even say African. Let me speak for my culture, Nigerian. In some cases, Yoruba culture. I'm Yoruba. That very and I'm not saying this is all Yoruba men.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very oppressive culture amongst some of
Mm-hmm.
them of your woman, that whole submissive thing. They misconstrue that to
Mm-hmm.
be she must be subservient, she can't be richer than you, she can't be more popular than you,
Mm-hmm.
she just has to be this good wife, and her role is the
Gotcha.
kitchen, look after the house, look after the children. Anything outside of that, anything ambitious,
Mm-hmm.
settle. They tell you so. So I remember my mom used to tell me that as well. I hope you don't. She literally say, I hope you don't marry someone like your dad, which is sad. Because it was weird because he was a really great father, but
Mm-hmm.
not the best husband. If we're
Gotcha.
frank and honest about that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
now that he knows God, he's a different human being.
Sure.
But then didn't really allow my mom to blossom. So my mom's biggest prayer for me when she saw that light in me,
Mm-hmm.
I pray for you. You're going to be with a great man you're going to be successful together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I had that thing in my mind, from when I could see that light towards the media and the ambition growing. I was like, I get it. I won't be a traditional wife.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll be on trips like where I see myself going. And, they might call me today, and I'm in New York tomorrow, and
Absolutely.
I can't make dinner that night, or I can't
Mm-hmm.
look after the kids that night. Does that make me a bad mother? No, it just makes me
Mm-hmm.
someone that's in purpose and in my calling. And I realized that I'm
Absolutely.
going to need a spouse that will absolutely, relentlessly, unapologetically support that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are some men that won't support their wives, but comments from people, you know, who's the man
Very
of the
true.
house and they then get insecure. So I remember
Mm-hmm.
I began to pray that prayer as well, that God, whoever I end up with, Lord, I pray that they are somebody, who is great within themselves, but also
Mm-hmm.
allows me to be great, because there are some men out there, they want to be the great one, and you just handle the home. But it's
Yes.
like I want both of us to even help each other, and when we come
Mm-hmm.
together, it's like fire, supporting each other's careers, each other's lives. I've always envisioned
Mm-hmm.
partnership for myself.
Yes.
Um, So I would say that yes, I knew the difficulties with being an ambitious woman.
Mm-hmm.
What would people say about you? What would people say about your dynamic with your partner? You can sometimes, in some cases, some people would choose love over their deepest desires. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've heard of some people that will literally be like, I chose to just serve my husband and my children. I just leave everything. But for me, it's like, this isn't a career, this is a calling. It's not about the money. It's never been about the money. It's about fulfilling God's biggest and greatest desires for me on earth before I go back to Him. So it's like, I need to do this. It's not even, so I've known the difficulties, but I've also said to myself that I will not settle until I find or God blesses me with the man that is my man. And, it's interesting because I ended up with, one of my closest friends who we got to know each other in such a way that there was no pretense. So I have dated, same with my husband. He's dated before me. I've dated before him. And I find that we can be really dishonest when we're dating, or things just come out later on down the line that we may not have spotted initially. And, whilst, of course, I'm still going to forever get to know my husband, people change over the years. But I was very happy because obviously we've known each other's characters innocently through friendship.
Yes.
And that gave me the confidence when the romantic aspects, I'm going to go into your second question now, confidence when the romantic aspect came in, and I knew the kind of man he was. I guess, am I a bit discriminatory? I didn't really want a Nigerian man just because of the trauma of seeing what my mom went through. I didn't want to end up with a Nigerian, and it wasn't until, again, getting to know the gospel, I realized how the gospel transforms and how it's not really about ethnicity, or I don't know, maybe God just knew that I had anxiety in that area. But my partner's from Zimbabwe, he's Zimbabwean, so a very different culture, and the way he was brought up as well. His parents had 2 boys, no woman in the house. No young girl in the house to be the one to go and wash the dishes or So they were well trained, to be domesticated. And, these are the things that I, listed. I said, I want a man of God. I want him to be a Christian. Not one of those weird Christians, though. I wanted him to be,
a practical, living, everyday, normal.
Yes, that would, not look at me as a medium regular and think, you should be on the pulpit. Don't kind of stifle my dreams, understand my calling, but still teach me the word. It was actually because of him. That's a whole different story. It was because of him that I got to know the true gospel. God indirectly and directly using him to help me question certain things. And, he was teaching me theology at the start of the whole unveiling of everything. But that's a different story. I really wanted a man of God. I wanted someone that was domesticated, because like I said, I knew I wasn't going to be a traditional wife, and someone that won't get insecure because they have to do things that are traditionally for the woman. I really wanted partnership above anything else, and I believe I have that in him, and I'm super grateful to God for that. Like I said, we've been friends for a long time. Sparks did fly in 2020. 2020 was the year of realizing a lot of things. I believe it was when he was working on his latest album, Before I Fall in Love Again. And it's so funny because I'd actually been on a date with one of his friends, colleagues. And it was his colleague's insecurity that actually brought us together, believe it or not. Because his colleague used to say to him, "Oh, you and Mo did it just because of our friendship. You and Mo, are you sure there's nothing there?" And I remember there was actually a time where he got upset with the guy because it was like, "No, that's that's cis kind of thing."
Yes.
And the guy kept going on about it, and then he said to me one time, he said, have you been to Nigos? That's his name. Have you been to Nigos yet for his album thing? I was like, "Oh no, he hasn't actually told me." So I felt kind of like, I messaged him like, "Yo, like everyone's been coming to your house for this album thing. Where's my invite?" And then he was like, "Yeah, you can come over when do you want to, come?" And then I did, and that was the first day after years of friendship. That was the first day that something was different. I mean, the year prior to that, he did leave some comments on my Instagram that were like, "This is beyond, you look nice,"
Sure.
Yeah.
dropping those little hints.
Yeah. But I didn't really think I'm very oblivious until you tell me straight up, you know.
Hmm.
So I didn't really think anything of it. He would comment like, you know, he would use the Premier League to describe how good I looked and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So that day when I went to his house, and then he made me this amazing plate of food, and he
Hmm.
said he was going to get me ice cream. I was looking at him like, like what is going on? It was
What's up with you?
yeah, and then he like let me like nap on his shoulder, and I was like, we're reaching a new level of like friendship.
Uh-huh.
And I remember like getting home and messaging him like, don't do that again. And he was like, do what? Like he was acting oblivious, and I was like, you know what you did. And then you know, little by little, we just started talking. He started checking in on me, and I think the pandemic brought us even closer together
Hmm.
as well. And literally, that's how the sparks began to fly. And one day we were chilling, and
Hmm.
yeah, he would say that I made the first one because I just wanted to be sure. I was like, all
Yeah.
this that you are doing, what's the sitch? So like
Uh-huh.
one day we were like working on his album, he was writing a song,
Uh-huh.
and you know, I think it was quiet. So like I leaned in,
Hmm.
and then he leaned in as well, and I was like,
Mm.
okay, you like me. So that
That was your little test.
so from there, literally, yeah.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I really, truly, truly enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad we were able to get you on the show.
Thank you.
Before we go, though, I do want you to give a word of advice
Okay.
to, you know, I'd like to say women, but
Okay.
anybody really, who is pursuing a big dream, or even, a career in media,
Mm,
and they may be discouraged,
yeah.
they may not be able to find their way. If
Mhm.
you can just give them, some words of encouragement. And after that, go on and tell us where we can find you on social, how people can follow you, if they want to book you,
Mhm.
and all of that good stuff.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me. I've really had fun with this
Absolutely.
conversation. Like the hours literally flown by. But my
Yes,
biggest
it has,
advice,
huh?
yeah, I would say my biggest advice is to be yourself. I
Hmm.
would say that the moments where I've seen my career thriving, or this thing I call a calling, thriving and doing really well, is the
Hmm.
times and seasons where I've just been myself.
Yes.
Whether it's how I present myself on social media, the things I talk about, the levels of vulnerability I allow myself to reach, it's always when I've been like owning who I am.
Hmm.
So like I said, I have a Nigerian background, and I have a dual personality in a sense of very Nigerian, but also quite quite
Hmm.
British as well, and embracing both. So you can even hear it in my accent. I have like a dual tone. You can hear a bit of London, but you can hear a bit of Nigeria. And
Yeah.
for many years, I've allowed these things to hold me back. But actually, the things that make you unique is what will draw an audience to you, is what will draw
Hmm.
your tribe to you. That's so important. Your tribe, your tribe, your tribe. That's what
Yes.
allows you to thrive in this life. When you find like-minded people that like the things you like, but you cannot find your tribe if you're pretending to be somebody else. That's something I've
Hmm.
come to realize. So the more real, the more authentically me I've become, it's the more growth I've seen, because my tribe is attracted to who I am inside, the real me. And if you're faking it, you're going to continually attract the fake, and you're going to have to continue to fake
Mm.
it to sustain that. But if you're just yourself, like how easy is that?
Right.
Like I said, partner with the Holy Spirit if you're a person of faith. Partner with the Holy Spirit. Like today, I went out to go get my hair done in the morning, and
Hmm.
it's interesting because the Holy Spirit told me to take something that we needed to post today. It told me to take it with me, but I was just like,
Uh-huh.
I kind of dismissed it. The
Yeah.
hair salon is right next to a post office. So I got there and I was like, oh, that's why you were telling me to take it. So it's just little things like that. Like,
Yes.
trust me, the Holy Spirit wants to
Hmm.
be a part of every bit of from the things you wear, your makeup, your hair, everything.
Hmm.
Partner,
Everything.
if he cares about the little things, how much more you're calling this thing that you're called to do, how much more your witness as a Christian in everyday
Hmm.
life. Just partner and listen to the Holy Spirit, and trust me, He will guide you.
That is so good. Thank you for sharing that. And I think now, with social media and the whole, fear of missing out and fake it till you make it and stuff
Mm,
like that, it's that much harder now,
mm,
right? Because it's like constant access to other
mm.
people's lives,
Yeah.
which we're constantly told, are the highlights. But still, that's not how it feels when
Mm,
you're watching other people's feeds. You're like, oh, they're living the best life. And people have problems, right? But it's hard to, consider that when
yeah.
you see this perfectly, produced feed. So
Mm,
being yourself and hearing that message is always a good one. So
yeah.
Mo, tell us where we can find you on social. If somebody wants to book you,
Mm,
how do we follow you? All of
okay.
that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So you can find me at MoChunks on everything. So that's Mo and then chunks like tuna chunks, MoChunks. So all my social media, even my YouTube is MoChunks now. So MoChunks on YouTube, at MoChunks on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everything. If you want to book me, you can email me info.mochunks@gmail.com. And thankfully we have a PA now, so she'll be there to answer all your requests and needs. Yeah, try not to DM me because my DMs move really fast. I know some people think if you're online, DM them quickly, but trust me, it moves fast. It's best to email. I keep on top of my emails along with my PA.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mo, it has been a wonderful conversation. As you said, it just zoomed right on by. I know that whoever is watching this or whoever even will watch it later
Yeah.
will be blessed by this conversation. I'm going to go on now and put you on the spot and ask you to come back on Churchy Chats. Don't know when yet, but know that another invitation is coming. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. I pray God's richest choice blessings on your life and that everything that you have imagined will come to pass, and not just what you imagined, but exceeding abundantly above all you've ever thought. He's going to blow your mind, and I'm just glad to be, someone watching your journey and such a strong woman of faith and conviction. That can be hard to find these days. So keep holding up the bloodstained banner, keep doing what you're doing. And we are so thankful for you being our first international guest on Churchy Chats.
Thank you
We
so much.
really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Listen, guys, this was an amazing show. We hope that you enjoyed it. Listen, make sure you share this. If you're watching this later, still jump on in and join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. We will be right back here next week, same place, same time on Churchy Checks with the Church Girl. As always, I appreciate your support, your kind words and comments. We're going forward. Listen, next week, 7 p.m. Central Time on Churchy Chats with a Church Girl. Until next time, stay churchy, folks. Good night.